And I don't know if I mentioned this last time I was on, but there's a book that if people don't get this, they should read this book by Zhao and Wang. They're Chinese colonels, and it was written in '99, and it really talks about this, about you know, the idea of using everyday items that we think of as not harmful suddenly become lethal because you're using poisons, you're using genetic agents, you're using whatever. It's not characteristic warfare where you have a battlefield and you have an army and we can see what's going on. This is where the part of this is the psychological operation. I mean, you've got to believe that there's clearly been a psychological operation that has gotten the American people. I'll leave out the rest of the world. I'm not going to speak for them, but I'm a proud American, and I've never seen anything like this in my life, where people that are skeptical about buying a car without going to Carfax are getting their children vaccinated with something that's totally experimental. That's like a symptom of some, you know, psychological illness. It's Stockholm syndrome. They've created this, and so I think that's my worldview: is that this is not by accident.
Well, I'm glad you're delving into the psychology behind this, because Dr. Peter McCullough has described his colleagues, other doctors, and he's an internal medicine expert, one of the most cited physicians in the country in terms of published papers on cardiovascular issues and so on. But he says his fellow doctors are in a trance, as if they've been hypnotized, and he says they're under a spell. I mean, I'm quoting what he said.
I think that's good.
And again, this is not a guy who is prone to, quote, conspiracy theories or anything of the kind. He's not an anti-vaxxer, so to speak, nothing of the kind. And he's describing the behavior of doctors as a spell. And he's asking what's going to happen when they snap out of it, when they break the spell and they realize they've been injecting pregnant women with a biological weapon, spike protein.
Right.
What are they going to think?
And, you know, and everybody's waking up at a different time. So I remember being on a thing, and I love Dr. McCullough, but I can, you know, he's a really well-trained classical academician, and he and Harvey Free, or Dr. Free and Harvey Risch and I were on a panel one time, and those three guys, all from Ivy League, you know, kind of thinking academic places, they're all scratching their heads, and this is early on, and they were saying, we just don't understand what's going on. Why would they be doing this? That's wrong. This is wrong. And finally, I just kind of, you know, blundered out, and I said, you can't understand this if you're thinking that people in the authoritarian medical societies here are acting in your best interest. If you think about this as an act of war, it makes sense. This is not by accident, because there's really only two, you know, now this is right up your alley. Okay, I got thinking about this PCR test. There's really only two worldviews here. People that do labs, you know, and you know more about this than I do, but I work with the medical lab people in the hospitals, for example. These are highly trained professionals. The lab managers know how to run tests. They know how to set up tests. They know how to make sure they're not false positives, false negatives. They know how to read the brochure that comes with the test. So what we'd have happen in 2020 is either you have to believe that every lab manager in the United States and around the world suddenly had a brain fart, and was when they were given these PCR tests, they didn't read the instructions, they didn't set it up right, they did it incorrectly. That all at once, they all had a brain fart and forgot how to do their job. That's one worldview. The other worldview is they were told by a higher power to not do the right thing. They were told to cycle these tests at 40 to 45 cycles rather than what it says. I looked up one of the Thermo Fisher package inserts on the test, and it shows a nice graph. It shows how you have to be in this certain zone, and it should be between 20 and 35, or 25 and 35 cycles. A lot of times between 25 and 30. Never go over 35, and they were doing 40 to 45. So again, there's, you know, it's the same question. Why did the CDC not tell us one thing that was right, that could have helped the American people? Not one thing. They were wrong about everything. That's not coincidence. That's conspiracy. I'm sorry.
The whole thing was malicious, and it was engineered. And by the way, as part of our laboratory, I sat down with Thermo Fisher